Hey everybody, this is Hob.
And Jamie.
And you're watching Dutch and Dragons. And due to some technical difficulties, we already have our Dutch, so let's get right to the dragons.
Woohoo!
What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about the rule of fun, also known as the rule of cool. But I can't say rule of cool like through this whole video. It's not going to work out.
We'll end up saying drool and all sorts of other weird words.
It's not going to work out.
It just won't work out. So the rule of cool generally says that if a player comes up with a cool action that they're going to perform to get out of a sticky situation, you should allow it. We kind of apply that across the game, though, and so we call it the rule of fun at our table. And the rule of fun is actually, it's something that's talked about in the player's handbook and in the rules, which is that fun should trump the rules, right? The fun should trump the rules.
I don't know. I don't like the word fun necessarily. Like, we use the word fun, we toss it around, but really it's enjoyment.
Yeah, enjoyment.
Enjoyment of the game.
Enjoyment of the game should definitely trump rules. And story in some cases, and a whole lot of other stuff. So we've got a series of questions that are kind of around that topic, and we're going to dive right in. So what's our first question?
If you're not having fun, what's the point?
Right.
All right, so make sure this is on. I'm on the wrong question. That's okay. Okay. Why is the rule of fun important to the game? I think we just sort of covered that because, like, if you're not having fun, why are you playing this game?
Right.
It's a game.
You're no longer playing a game anymore. Yeah. So we kind of just dove right through that one.
What are some things that can interfere with the rule of fun?
Abuse.
Yeah.
Sometimes storyline. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to allow the rule of fun to trump the storyline, and we'll touch on that a little bit later, I think. But I think the biggest one is abuse. People abusing the allowance of some activities or some actions because it worked that one time, and so then they become a one-trick pony that just keeps trying to do the same thing over and over again, and that takes all the fun out of it, and it takes all the cool out of it.
Well, and I'm also going to put in there the misunderstanding. A lot of times, people don't really understand what is meant by the rule of cool or the rule of fun.
Right.
And they think fun, they think light and happy, sunshiny rainbows, and then they go, well, I don't really want that.
Right.
Which, let's just go into our next, which is how do you prevent players from abusing the rule of fun, like you said, like sometimes?
So, I think the best way to prevent abuse of the rule of fun or the rule of cool is to create consequences for failure that are equivalent to the level of difficulty. So if, for instance, and I just read this example online, which is, say, for example, you have a player who their character is a thief, and they want to pull an Altair from Assassin's Creed. They want to do death from above. They want to jump on an enemy below and murder him before he even notices they're there.
That's a good idea.
That sounds really cool, and we're going to let that happen, but there are going to be some associated skill rolls associated with that.
Associated skill rolls associated with it?
Yes, associated skill rolls associated with that to associate the knife with the enemy below.
Okay.
Have we gotten enough associations?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've got enough now.
So there are going to be some skill rolls that have to occur to determine whether or not they are able to successfully leap down, land on the target,
not hurt themselves, and drive the knife home in a way that it results in instant death. Right.
Now, on the upside, they're going to gain the benefit of sneak attack, because death from above,
definitely
sneak attack, right? They're still going to have to make their attack roll successfully. They're going to have to make an athletics or an acrobatics check for the leap they're going to have to make a athletics or acrobatics check to make sure that they don't hurt themselves in the process.
Yeah, sprain an ankle, twist an arm, you never know.
If everything is successful, then they get the kill.
Yeah, you get that
it looks
really
awesome.
cool thing, yeah.
But if any part of that fails, there are consequences to that action. So if they don't successfully make their attack roll, sure, it's with advantage, but if they don't make their attack roll,
dude gets away.
They fail to hit, they land on the guy maybe, and they're successful
really
in that.
Loud.
He squawks, maybe they both take damage, maybe the attacker lands awkwardly, knocking them both prone, but now they're both prone.
So there could be a million things.
There's a whole bunch, and they could take damage from the fall. They might take partial damage from the fall. So there's a whole bunch of different factors that you can put in there to up the tension and the potential danger of this really cool thing. But if they're successful, it's going to be really cool when they do it.
All right, next question. How do dramatic, intense, or darker aspects of society fit within the rule of fun?
I'll let you tackle that one.
Okay, so obviously the darker, more intense aspects of society are written about in books, talked about in film, done in television series. So there's no reason to leave those out of D&D. And even if you look at fantasy series and fantasy stories, they're all there. Prejudice and darkness and death and killing and all of that stuff exists, and people go to watch it. I think the problem comes with the rule of fun is when people go, well, that's not necessarily fun. No, slavery's not fun.
No.
There's nothing fun about that.
There's nothing fun about bigotry
or
and
oppression.
Racism or oppression.
But these themes exist in our world, and D&D is a wonderful tool to get to sort of talk about and explore those themes in a safe environment. The problem with the breakdown comes with this, and I say this all of the time, is your table needs to have some idea of, and I love to use the movie analogy of what movie they're going to watch. Because if everyone assumes they're going to a rom-com and you take them into a horror movie, no one is going to have fun. Like, that's going to be a shock to the system. So I don't necessarily think you need to go into every single theme that you have going on in your story, because as the story evolves, themes change. As I get to know my players, themes change. So, but I do give them something to expect. I will say things like, this is a horror film. We're going to have it's like eldritch horror, so think Call of Cthulhu and all of these things. I'll give them references to the types of stories. We're going to do a straight up Lord of the Rings style story. And I might just say flat out, elves in this world, there is a prejudice against them.
Right.
And so they know kind of what to expect, so I don't shock them.
Yeah.
But I don't leave those themes out either. How about that?
No, I think that's really solid. And it doesn't mean that has to be the tone all the time either. It's okay to have some lighthearted themes and some things that kind of, like with any movie that you go to that carries a very serious tone. The Avengers.
They have some really hilarious parts, really tense parts, really scary parts, really sad parts.
And it all comes together to combine and create a cohesive story. And so your themes in your game have to do the same thing. They have to be part of a cohesive story. It doesn't mean that you can't have fun moments or silly moments or moments when things are tense or scary or sad or anything else, just because you have a predominant theme in your game.
Yeah. And you don't have to use those themes either. I mean, if you just want to do lighthearted games, more power to you.
If that's what flies at your table, that's what flies at your table.
Yeah. What are some things that people miss when they're applying the rule of fun? I think we just talked about a big one.
We did.
Which is they get this thought into their head that because we're focusing on the rule of fun, we're not going to have serious themes. I also think something else that we just covered, which is they have no consequences for their cool, awesome things, and so things can get out of hand.
Yep.
So
there have to be consequences. That's important.
I think those are the two biggest that people miss.
I would agree.
When applying the rule of fun.
Yeah.
What if you're part of a table where the rule of fun is applied in a way that removes serious topics from the game? I know I say this all the time, which is, this isn't your table.
Yeah, sometimes it's just not your table.
Yeah.
I was invited to a D&D game once, and
where it was all silliness.
Where it was literally food fights in the freaking shopping mall kind of stuff all the time. It was not my style of game. It wasn't the style of game that I was expecting either. Based on the people who were also involved in the game, the other people involved in the game, it wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting something that was maybe a little more serious. The understanding that we all have our moments where we're silly, but this whole game was just nothing but perpetual silliness, and that was not.
And while we are fond of the silly,
it was not what I was expecting, and I reacted to it in a way that was anti-silly. And they didn't like that. So, I was asked not to come back, but I wouldn't have come back anyways because it wasn't my table.
Right. And you always feel free to, with grace, exit a game.
With grace.
With grace.
I didn't exit with grace.
He did not exit with grace.
You know.
But always feel free to just say, you know what? I respect you guys. You're having a lot of fun. Your game seems cool for you. This isn't really my style of game. I'm going to exit and just leave.
Yeah, sometimes it's just not your table. And as the Maverick says, you gotta know when to walk away.
Gotta know when to walk away. Now, this is different from it's not my night.
Yeah.
If it's not your night, if you're having a bad day and you're coming into something that is very serious after a bad day and you're just like, I really just don't want to be super serious. I wish we could do something a little more lighthearted because it's not my day. That's a different conversation with your DM. Let your DM know always if it's just, I'm having a bad day. There are things you can do to accommodate players that are doing
absolutely.
So don't leave a gaming group if it's a bad day. Leave a gaming group if it's a bad all the time, if it's not your style.
Yep.
I want to just make sure I have that out there. All right. How much of the rule of fun is set by the players and how much is set by you as the DM?
I feel like as the dungeon master or game master, you have to keep a pretty tight rein on how far the rule of fun goes. and that might sound a little totalitarian.
No,
but the reality is that if you let the rule of fun trump everything, like literally trump everything, it's not going to be a fun game anymore.
It spirals out of control fast.
It does, and it will get out of control very, very quickly. So I think you have to have a very thorough knowledge of what's going to break the game and how to balance the rule breaking with the rule following so that you get that cohesive story.
True fact. Can the rule of fun be used by the other side?
Yeah.
Yes.
The bad guys can do cool crap too. Just so you know, they don't all have to be bumbling idiots.
Yeah. I never use that to intentionally kill my players, but I also will warn them, like, if you come up with a house rule, like, health potions are a bonus action, be aware that if the bad guy's got health potions, he's going to use those as a bonus action.
Yep. So, just like so what applies to the players applies to the NPCs.
Yeah.
is basically how that boils down.
But again, we have very strict, okay, so now you're going to have to roll and be successful on those. That's true for the bad guys too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, how do you handle situations where someone's rule of fun moment overrides someone else's?
Man, that's always hard, because keeping balance and keeping the game moving can be tricky sometimes. And as we're wont to do, players they'll sit and they'll mull things and they'll come up with what they think is a really cool idea, but the timing is just off and they miss their shot.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they don't miss their shot all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can fudge things. I don't like to. I like things to be organic whenever possible. So sometimes they just miss out on that cool thing, but now they have an idea for something cool they can do another time, and maybe earlier in the battle or earlier in the situation they can be like, oh hey, I had this idea last time and I think it would really work here, and then they can go ahead and do it, and then they trump everybody else's rule of fun. So I mean, you got to find this balance. So there.
Speaking of balances, how does a player address it when one player at the table seems to get all the fun or cool moments from the DM? So what do you do when it looks like the DM is playing favorites?
Talk to your DM.
I mean, really, there's really only a couple things you can do. You can call your DM out on it. I usually go start with the localized. Go to the DM and go, I don't know if you're realizing this, but this guy seems to be getting all the cool stuff. They're getting all the loot, they're getting all the cool moments, they're getting everything. Because sometimes maybe the DM is not realizing it. Maybe the way that the story is written just favors one of the characters.
And it might be I've been in this situation. I was playing in a hero system game, which is a superhero. It favors superheroed level gaming, and the system's very, very flexible. If you've ever played it, you'll know that it's also wildly complex. Now, we were playing in this game, and every single night and storyline was focused around one particular player: the storyteller, game master's girlfriend. Every single game.
Oh no.
Every single session.
Oh no.
Every single cool thing that happened was focused on the game master's girlfriend. And it was getting really frustrating, because when I would come up with a cool thing to do, I would get told, no, you can't do that.
But when she would, you totally
But when she would come up with something cool that was similar, oh yeah, totally okay.
Okay, so what did you do?
I broke the game.
Oh, see, now he's a bad example. Don't listen to this man.
So I broke the game. So I talked to him about it first, and I was like, hey, this seems wildly tilted in your girlfriend's direction. I don't know if you're doing it on purpose, or are you trying to just get her into it, or what the deal is.
And if you're doing that, you should be playing with players who know it. I'm trying to get my girlfriend to play.
So just
do this
humor
cool
us,
thing.
right? Humor it, right?
You should tell them.
But he goes, oh no, it's just that this particular storyline is all about her character. And I said, but that doesn't prevent us from being able to do cool things, and it shouldn't take us out of the spotlight all the time.
No, it shouldn't.
Well, you're just going to have to wait until it's your turn to be in the spotlight. And I went, oh, okay, fine. And then I made a moment, and he wasn't really happy about it, and then we stopped gaming together afterwards.
So he had a bit of a tantrum. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, I did. Well, so what happened is he created a situation wherein I was able to take advantage of the rules to create to do something that he didn't really want me to be able to do. And it's a really long story, and I'm not going to go into it any further, but
you shouldn't do that.
You shouldn't do the things that I do. You should talk to your game master, you should talk to the other players at your table, and you should try and be civil about it. I'm not always very good at being civil, so...
And if that doesn't work, replace your game master.
or replace your table.
Or replace your table.
Go to a different table.
There are two ways you can go about that. Okay, last question, real fast. He's not allowed to answer. What factors do you, as the DM, consider before allowing game-breaking moves or actions?
Face stabbings. No, what was the question?
What factors do you, as the DM, consider before allowing game-breaking moves or actions? For me, because you're not allowed to answer anymore, you're bad influence.
You asked me the question.
For me, does it fit the storyline? Is it naturally into the storyline? What I mean by that is, if your players have been captured and they're tied up in a basement and someone's questioning them and someone says, I want to seduce the questioner, most of the time I'm going to be like, seriously? No. Like, okay, you can try, but you're at disadvantage and he's at advantage, and like, because that doesn't really fit. However, if they're in sort of a back and forth with maybe someone who could possibly be a bad guy, and there's a lot of back and forth going on, and there's some flirtation, they go, okay, I tried a seduction roll. Sure, why not?
One night with Yvonne.
Yeah, one night with Yvonne. This has actually happened in my game. My players avoided an entire battle because someone seduced the bad guy. But, so does it make sense in the story? Is it organic enough in the story that it would actually happen if the story was happening? Two, is it appropriate for the player or for the character? Because, let's say I have a paladin, a light paladin, a real shiny pants, and he wants to try to seduce the bad guy. No, it's probably not going to happen for you because, well, that's wildly out of character. Or I've got a plate-wearing dwarf who wants to suddenly run parkour. No, that's probably not going to happen. And then the last thing that I consider is... I don't even know.
She derailed herself.
I derailed myself.
That was that was a well done derailment. So things to take into consideration. What are the potential hazards in the action? So if it goes wrong,
how does it go wrong?
How does it go wrong? What are the consequences? And I will talk.
You derailed me. I'm just thinking about freaking.
I will talk about consequences. I will talk about consequences all the time when it comes to allowing your players to do things that break the rules. The consequences have to be as severe
as the coolness. So if the cool level is way up here, your consequences also have to be way up here. Yeah.
And it has to scale, right? So being able to seduce the bad guy, if they fail, has to have significant consequences. Otherwise, it's not fun. It's just par for course, right?
Off with their head, type thing. But, that's really the whole gist of it, is that a lot of people leave out the consequences, and so the players just try cool things all the time because nothing bad comes out of it.
Right.
But if the players go, okay, I have this really cool idea, it could be very, very cool, or I could die, then they're a little more sparing with the cool things that they do, and it works out pretty well.
Absolutely. So that's all we have time for today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please click the like and subscribe below, and click the little bell so that you get notifications when our new episodes are uploaded.
Thumbs up for his bad behavior.
Always thumbs up for my bad behavior. And if you don't like us, you can also subscribe. We don't mind if you hate watch us. It's cool.
Yeah, go talk bad about us on Reddit.
That's right. We're okay with that. But other than that, thank you again for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have fun storming the castle.